All right, it's time for the mailbag. You can email info@davidpakman.com if you have something to say. It might be featured on the show. Keep it polite, keep it substantive, keep it productive. Yeah, only like 5% of people do, but we have a lot of those 5% to be featured today. Let's jump right into some of these. Max wrote in, and Max, very, very upset, says, will you admit you were wrong about Russia? David, you incredulously made fun of Trump when he was talking about Russia. You even pretended or purposely were ignorant and said you don't even know what he's talking about. Will you ever admit you were wrong and Trump was right? Michael Sussman is on trial for exactly what Trump was talking about. It turns out the whole Russiagate scandal was generated by the Hillary Clinton campaign, personally approved Hillary Clinton, then surreptitiously fed to the FBI. Will you ever acknowledge that, or will you continue to pretend like this didn't happen? Well, in fact, I can't think of anything in particular that I was wrong about when it comes to Russia. Michael Sussman was acquitted by a jury. Now people are saying, oh, the jury wasn't a good jury. Well, that's the process we have. And I mean, listen, I never said Trump was going to be caught on video plotting stuff with Putin. We were nuanced and specific in terms of what we thought went on. And so I'll admit, I have no problem admitting I was wrong about things when I'm wrong about them. Max also writing, when will you admit that the Wuhan lab story is not only real, but leftists and big tech censored us for years for talking about it, and you have no problem with that? Same with the Hunter Biden laptop from hell story. Yep, I covered both stories. We follow evidence. And that's it, Max. I'm sorry. You're sort of living in a fantasy world. Okay, Jumpin' Jack Flash wrote in and said, I watched your rebroadcast of Trump's Wyoming speech. I quickly learned from your narrative interruptions during Trump's speech that you're quite a moronic a-hole. Good job. Perhaps your mother should have aborted you. What a beautiful message of peace and love and productivity. You know, when I get a message like this, I really think to myself, I should reconsider my opinions and political views, because this is it's just so respectfully written, and it just really makes you think introspectively, could I be wrong? And so I am going to revisit all of my political views thanks to this email. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, Richard wrote in. Richard says that he joined Trump's platform Truth Social, which Trump calls Truth Central.
Truth Central.
Yeah. Richard says, so David, I was jaw dropped for the first 3 minutes after joining Truth Central. After that, I realized it's literally 90% trolls. It's a turd spiraling the drain. Yeah, there's a lot of bot-like and sort of troll-like activity on there. And I joined sort of like as an experiment. You know, I'm not really expecting any kind of major dialogue or anything like that there. But I encourage others just to check it out. And the replies to the things I post are extremely nuts. Very, very nuts. It could survive. I mean, listen, they quite literally cloned Twitter. The website is just a copy of Twitter. And so to the extent that Twitter is successful, at least Truth Social, now I'm saying it, Truth Central, at least Truth Social is starting with like a layout, a user experience that kind of makes sense. But I don't know. If you told me a year from now Truth Social will be huge, I'd be like, yeah, maybe. If you told me a year from now Truth Social will be shut down, I'd say, yeah, that's plausible too. Justin wrote in about gun control. Justin from Dallas, or JR from Dallas, as he goes by, says, David, relatively new listener, would love to hear your thoughts on the debate technique that gun rights folks use when debating gun control of assault weapons. They tend to start lecturing the control advocate on the technicalities of the guns to show their supposedly informed knowledge. It's ridiculous. How would you respond? Well, yes, it's very popular when we start saying, hey, look, like assault style rifles keep being used in mass shootings. There's a couple approaches they'll take. One is they'll say most gun deaths are from handguns. And it's like, yes, that's true. That's a different problem. There's really three problems, actually, when it comes to gun violence, or gun deaths, I should better say. It's death by suicide with a gun, what we might call one-off gun homicides, which includes one or two victims. Remember, it's only a mass shooting when it goes beyond that, either to 3 or 4 victims, depending on which statistics you look at. So then you've got your sort of like handgun, typically handgun-based incidents, which are 1 or 2 victims. And then you've got your mass shooting. So one technique is they'll say, more people die from handguns. What, are you going to ban handguns? It's like, well, no, we're proposing different things. When it comes to the assault rifles, semi-automatics, large capacity magazines, etc., we want age limits. We want, all these different things. Separately, let's talk about the handgun piece as well. So one important thing is to say we have many issues with firearms and we have different solutions for each of them. Then they'll get into what is an assault style rifle anyway. I can change the appearance of this firearm and make it not an assault rifle, but it's still sort of the same firearm. Or I can show you a firearm that looks different, but still technically is an assault rifle. What we have to do is just kind of zoom out and go, okay, but hold on a second. The same type of firearm continues to be used in mass shootings frequently. Whether I can identify every example of it doesn't really matter. We can have informed opinions about military conflicts without knowing every last detail about military strategy or tanks or whatever the case may be. And it's really sort of a red herring to avoid talking about the most important thing. So you've got to take control back of the situation, I think, is the point I'm trying to make. AJ wrote in about the night before the January 6th insurrection. And AJ said, David, sir, Marjorie Taylor Greene has the same shoes as the person of interest in the DC pipe bombing suspect the night before the January 6th insurrection. What do you think, David? Is it just a coincidence? Dozens of people have written to me about this, and they've said, we have no suspect for the pipe bombing yet. The gait of the individual sort of seems like it could be Marjorie Taylor Greene. It seems like it could be a woman rather than a man. These are I don't know if that's true. People write to me. And then most recently, the shoes worn in the surveillance video by the pipe bomber are shoes that Marjorie Taylor Greene also owns. Listen, everybody's right about all those things. Big picture, I agree with all those things. It sort of looks like it could be Marjorie Taylor Greene's gait. These are the shoes that Marjorie Taylor Greene has been seen wearing. We don't have it's all true. It's completely circumstantial. It's completely speculative. It is truly starting to get strange that there's still no suspect for the DC pipe bombing attempt from January 5th into January 6th. I don't know what to think about it. Could it be Marjorie Taylor Greene? At this point, I can't rule it out, but it is very speculative and it should be investigated for sure. Stephanie wrote in and says, thanks for the membership sale. David, sir, because of your irresponsibly cheap Memorial Day sale, I have finally been able to buy a membership to the David Pakman Show. I've been wanting to for a while, but couldn't quite find the funds. Sometimes sales are not as amazing as they are made out to be, but this really was a great discount and it made my membership possible. Super excited to be on board and to be putting my money where my mind is. Keep it up. Your work is so needed. Thank you, Stephanie. I spoke on a live stream last week. I was genuinely bummed out. I got about 24 emails when my paternity leave started saying things like, David, I just signed up and now you're on paternity leave. Cancel my membership. Or I didn't know I was going to be paying for repeats. Or you think you can just abandon your audience and keep my YouTube subscription? You're out of your mind. And I was so bummed out because it's like, guys, aren't we progressive? Aren't we in favor of paid paternity leave? That doesn't mean you have to fund my paternity leave, but like I am self-employed at the end of the day, right? Where do you think the money comes from? And in particular, from the people that don't even pay, the show is free. Like there's a little bit of entitlement in saying, how dare I take time off from something you get literally for free. You don't pay anything for the show. So I love that a bunch of people like Stephanie and others later got in touch and said, David, I apologize on behalf of those people. Those are not real progressives. Real progressives would understand what's going on here and the importance of paternity leave. But it was a little bit of a bum out moment. Like, and also I said this on my recent live stream too. This is kind of why the right wins, because they, the example I gave was, you've got all these right wingers who fund Charlie Kirk. Do you think they're watching his show or counting his days off or whatever? No, they just go, this guy is saying the types of things that we want said. So we're just going to fund it, and that's it. And this is one of the real differences between left and right. And we've experienced it on the show many, many times before. The right gets, you've got to just fund this stuff and let it exist because you think it should exist. And, counting days off or talking about repeats, it's a little bit concerning. All right, there's my rant. I'm off the soapbox. Tom wrote in about LGBT nomenclature, and Tom says this is a semantics correction suggestion. I think this is Tom writing. I think there's a push to revert to the initial LGBT instead of LGBTQ or LGBTQ plus to stop the disgruntled sighs of people thinking, oh, LGBTQ, A, B, C, D, it's just too much. People that I know personally that are active in the community always say LGBT for this reason. I have never changed, to be perfectly frank. I've been saying LGBT from the start. I don't think I ever used LGBT plus or LGBTQ. I have no desire to exclude anyone from any group with which they identify. But I am, it's interesting. It hasn't even occurred to me to change the word I use because I know that my audience knows exactly the group I'm talking about. Whether or not I say LGBT or LGBTQ for queer, people that identify, which is, I guess, a more general term, my audience knows my views on this. My audience knows my inclusivity on this issue. So I've just never felt the need. And quite frankly, nobody's ever really corrected me that I'm aware of. I mean, okay, I don't look at YouTube comments, but I think people sort of get the point of the language I use. But yes, I have noticed I am seeing a lot of LGBT appearing again rather than the longer ones. Listen, we're fighting for people's rights. Let's get people rights. That's what I care about. Ryan says masks are traumatizing, but RoboCop guards are just fine. Yeah, this is a really good commentary on the armed teachers thing. Ryan says, just wanted to point out that forcing kids to wear masks would cause irreparable damage to children's psyche. Sure, it would save a few lives, but we simply can't risk our kids' well-being. Oh, but let's go ahead and arm the teachers, hire an army of armed guards, maybe even build a few RoboCops at the entrance of the schools. They'll be fine with that. Right. Yeah. And the point is one I've tweeted about previously. We couldn't do masks in schools because it would just be too traumatizing to the children. But it's fine to arm teachers, send kids to school with bulletproof backpacks and ballistic shield blankets and all of these things. That's fine. But the masks were just too much. It's crazy. It's crazy. And lastly, today from Julie. Julie says, David, sir, I'm embarrassed and almost feel sorry for the triggered projectionist Trumpists that think they're trolling you. Most of us see through their blatant failed attempts to own the libs and might find it amusing if it weren't so sad. You're obviously doing something right. Keep up the tremendous work. Thank you, Julie. Julie adds a PS. PS, please don't shave your head when you hit the 2 million subscriber mark on YouTube. Well, let's see if we can get me past the 1.5 million subscriber mark first, and then we'll figure out, listen, if we got to 2 million, it would be such a major milestone. I would consider shaving my head. I don't know that anybody would care about it, but I would consider doing it. info@davidpakman.com. Send me your thoughts.